anyone can achieve anything if they just stay determined.
This is Space for All. Welcome to Space for All. I'm your host, Valerie McKiernan. Today we're speaking with Snehal Bhamare. Snehal is a systems engineer at Boeing and a Texas A&M aerospace engineering graduate. Let's take a listen to my interview with Snehal. All right, so tell me, how did you get started in the aerospace industry? How did you find your place in space?
I currently work at the Boeing company in Houston, Texas as an engineer. And I graduated from Texas A&M University as an aerospace engineer. I do not have like a specific reason that sparked my interest in space. Growing up, my parents would always take me to NASA and a lot of museums. My father himself, he's an electrical engineer with an MBA. And my mom, she's a skincare specialist. So I had STEM in my family background. So I was very grateful to have a background growing up in STEM, which really helped me explore and learn a lot of things at a very young age.
So your father and your mother were both kind of had STEM backgrounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you then choose where you were going to university? How did that decision come about?
So for me, I applied to a lot of colleges coming out of
Okay.
high school. I knew I always wanted to do engineering because I loved math and science growing up so much. They were my core subjects in school, and I loved space, is all I knew. But I did not know aerospace engineering as a major existed. So when I chose to go to Texas A&M University, I looked at their long list of engineering majors, and aerospace engineering was the first one on it. And the name itself intrigued me. I was like, aerospace engineering? That's a thing? I'm excited to learn more about it. And then I read more about it. Usually in our college at Texas A&M, we have the first year as general engineering where everybody gets an opportunity to learn about what major they want to go into. So when they choose it, their next 3 years, they know what they have signed up for. So in that first year, I did all my research. I learned about aerospace. I learned about what are the topics and the subjects I'm going to study about aerodynamics, thermodynamics, flight control, all of that good stuff. And I had mentally prepared myself for the challenges that were about to come. And like my roommate in college, she loves to tell me that you romanticize your major so much because it was like love at first sight when I heard about aerospace. I was like, this is what I want to do.
While you were at university,
Mm-hmm.
what what were you experiencing in your aerospace classes, in your aerospace engineering classes? Did you find a lot of women in there? Did you find that you were kind of one of only a few? Do you see that kind of changing since you started to the end of your fourth year? How was that experience for you?
So going into aerospace engineering, it was already a very small department compared to mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, computer science. They were all there, but aerospace was a very small department, had about 150 people, around 200 people, and I'm telling you, less than 10% of them were females. We started off as a group of 10 girls, right? All in our first engineering class, Aero 101. And we looked at each other and we found a table and we sat next to each other, all of us. As time passed, classes passed, we went into our upper level classes in aerospace, and my friends and I, like my female friends and I, we would go into the class, would stand in the back, and we would be like looking at each other. We're like, you and I are the only two here today, females. So we would go in the front of the room and we would focus in that way. But the ratio of females in aerospace at my university was very small, and I would say it's still very small today. The one thing that changed my perspective about the ratio was when I attended Society of Women Engineers conference at Houston, Texas, that was happening in 2021. The amount of female engineers I met over there, it was filled with them all around the world. And it was just such a like a warm feeling to my heart to see that, wow, I'm not alone. Though it felt like at university that we're only 5 or 10 of us in a classroom and there are not too many females, Here, I felt so much more empowered hearing other women's stories and their hardships and how they face challenges, how they overcome challenges. All of that was very, very life changing for me, just attending that one conference.
Yeah, it is really interesting when you just look at your one company or your one class or, the department at Texas
Yeah.
A&M, you don't see that many women, but we're seeing that
Mm-mm.
there's actually women all throughout the industry that we just weren't aware of. We haven't been connected before. And that's been an incredible phenomenon that I've personally been experiencing since January. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like when a lot of people, when they're in college, they tend to change majors a lot. They tend to, not really find their way as quickly as it seems you did. You kept on pushing, right? Even, your push to eventually get tied into Boeing and the success you've had already. What advice would you give people, not just women, anyone who is entering
Anyone.
into engineering or wants to enter into the aerospace industry? What advice would you give them to make that movement like you have over the course of your career thus far?
Hard work, determination, and just being focused are some of the three key principles that I had followed while I ended up choosing what I chose. A couple of years ago, I watched a movie with my dad after we were done studying, and the movie's on Netflix. It's called Gunjan Saxena. And Gunjan Saxena is an Indian Air Force officer and a former helicopter pilot. And she's one of the first women in the combat zone who flew in the combat zone. And there was a quote in the movie that Gunjan's father said to her that really stuck with me. And I looked at my dad, I'm like, this is what you tell me every single day. And the one advice my dad always told me, or he always told me one thing, it was that this is in Hindi, and I'll translate it later. It's like जो लोग मेहनत का साथ नहीं छोड़ते किस्मत कभी उनका साथ नहीं छोड़ती. So that directly means that the people who are always working hard and never lose sight of their hard work, the best destiny will never leave their side. So that's something that really stuck with me from day
Wow.
one. It was really intimidating. My first ever engineering class. We had a mini pre quiz. I didn't know how to answer any of the questions. And I was selected in this program. I didn't know how to answer anything. I went into the car with my dad after he picked me up from my first class and I was like, "Dad, I don't think so I fit in." My dad told me one thing. He was like, small steps. Focus on short term goals, and you never know that you'll reach the final goal one day. I was a very average student growing up. Like in school, I was very average. I was not someone who was like getting a gold medal in everything. Nuh-uh. I seeked opportunities that fascinated me, and I built my cores like that and values like that. Anyone can achieve anything if they just stay determined, put in the time and the efforts every
I
day.
fully agree
That's
with
all.
you. One of the things that seems to be a reoccurring theme and what you're saying is support. You had a support system in college, you have a support system in your
Support.
family. Um, it sounds like, you have a bunch of different areas where you had support throughout your career and still do. Where do you think the best places to look for support are, for people who don't necessarily have that in their family and need that to continue to push forward?
You have to find people that add value to your dream and not take it away from you. You need to find friends who are as determined and focused as you. Now, when I was at school, I had my aero bestie. We were known as the dynamic duo of aerospace. So we would study every day, would wake up early in the morning, go to our engineering building, knocked out all the problems, and learn all the lessons, and then go back to sleep later at night, and then come back and repeat. Having people that are as driven as you around you is very necessary whenever you're trying to do something that's challenging. And I feel like when you're focused, you tend to attract people like that whenever you're in school or in life in general who are adding value to your dream.
How did you then get to Boeing so quickly after university? What was that transition?
I was very involved in Women in Aviation in my 4 years of college. I was very involved in SWE, Society of Women Engineers, even in Aggie Aerospace Engineering Organization in our school. So I was involved in all of these organizations. It was my second year of college as a sophomore where I had got an email from my advisor saying it was this Boeing mentorship program. Now, I didn't know what a Boeing mentorship program is, but I just like this is me seeking for opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
like, the little things. That's just me. I'm like, "Oh, that seems interesting. I'm going to go for it." Right? Um so I signed up for that program and I got paired with a advisor. And she was not an advisor. She was a former aerospace engineer who graduated from Texas A&M University, and she worked at Boeing. She and I would exchange emails every other week or every week. I would just tell her about my classes because she could understand where I'm coming from. Like she went through all of that. She would give me advice about career. She would tell me you should apply for internships. Just having someone who's a professional putting in her time from her everyday life into helping me navigate my path was such a blessing. It was not like I had a dream to work at Boeing or anything. I didn't know where I was gonna go. I emailed her, reached back out to her. I was like, okay, I'm looking for a job. I don't know where to start looking. Do you have any tips and tricks for me to where I can start applying? She's like, there's a SWE conference happening virtually, and this was around COVID time. So in that SWE conference, it's partnered with Boeing this year. And the one job that intrigued me was the job of a structural design engineer. And I applied for it, I interviewed for it, and this was my first ever interview in life. I used to wake up every single day early in the morning, like 5:30 or like 4:30, 5:30 to study. And I would take 2 hours from my early mornings to just apply for jobs. So it's not like I only applied to Boeing or I didn't apply to any other companies. I have an Excel and the list is 200. I got like only like 5 or 10 like not even 10, like 5 callbacks that were legit. And I took all of those 5 phone calls really seriously until the SWE opportunity came in the way. And then I took that opportunity and then it was just so smooth.
So you're a structural design engineer. What does that mean? What do you do?
My job, everyday job, is basically using a lot of CAD, right? It's a computer aided design software that helps us design whatever requirements Boeing has. It's the engineering management team that tells us this is what we need. We built it, we create a drawing, we add all the specifications in it, we tell them we have multiple design reviews. It goes through technical reviews, it goes through all the senior engineers. And then once it's like finalized, safety quality is intact, then it goes into the fields and the manufacturing fields for it to be built. It's an army of people that work towards building that one thing that can take years because it cannot be right at the first go. That's why it needs regular like reviews and checks and checks and checks for it to be like perfect. Because in our industry, as you have heard, failure is not an option. So we need to make sure it's first time quality for the safety of people.
Yeah, absolutely. So you had a background in STEM going into university. A lot of people don't have that opportunity, right?
Yes.
Um, and it sounds like from our conversation and just things that we know about the industry that in order to understand that you can be in space, like you can be involved in the space industry, but also understand kind of where you need to go to in order to get there eventually, you need to be exposed to STEM earlier. So that's high school, right? So what do you think we can do better in our industry to really get high schoolers more exposed to STEM specifically for the aerospace industry?
That's a really good question because after I had graduated, I had this thought in my mind that I have gotten all the support system that I needed, but there are so many young kids out there who don't have that. And they don't have the family background, they don't have parents who are in the field of STEM, right? And the kids have the dream to be in the field of aerospace or space in general, but they don't know how to navigate. And that's where we come in hand. Like outreach events are a big deal. Going out to these schools, talking to the kids about what you do, talking and motivating them on how this industry changes the world. I had made it a goal to myself after I'd graduated that I want to at least inspire one or two young minds in my life. And through that, I started opening my Instagram page. I post a lot of things that are motivational related to the industry, space industry. I try to make videos. I try to um, expose more people to this industry itself because I feel like a lot of people are on social media today.
I mean, we've found a huge place in social media. And recently, I've been seeing, people like yourself and other women in the industry um, posting and just showing people what this is all about. It's not just this like secret mystery thing that we all see every once in a while in the news. And that has been
No,
extremely impactful, especially for young kids. So,
it is.
you bring your culture into your social media presence in addition to space. What, like, I know what gave you the inspiration, but like when you post something, kind of what's your thought process when you go to post something that kind of brings those two things in?
I'm a woman of color. I'm Indian. I'm from India. And so I did not know a single Indian aerospace engineer in my 4 years of college. And nor did I have anyone to look up to. That was like a regular person like you and I, right?
Hmm.
Not someone who's like famous, but just someone who is going to school, has a job, and is of my origin. I didn't know anyone. So I told myself that I should be the one person who can show my culture at the same time, but at the same time, show that I'm part of this industry too. And you can do both. My culture, like very close to my heart, whether I'm celebrating Diwali, Holi, Ganesha Chaturthi, all these beautiful festivals that the Indian culture has, I want to share it with my friends, with my community, with the people who are following me, and share what is close to my heart. Wherever I go, whatever I do, I try to at least capture one picture of it, or a clip, or a video, whether it be the outreach event I did, whether it be going to a space museum or an aviation museum. As I am putting things in there, I am spreading awareness that not a lot of people know about these things that exist. Now, like air shows, I didn't know what air shows were until like recently, 2 years ago. So I don't know what I'm gonna post like 10 days from now. I have no idea. With showing all of that, I also like to show that I'm a normal person with a normal life and I have friends and I have a family. So I'm just telling people like I'm human, but and so are you. You can do everything and plus live a normal life. This is nothing that's like, oh, this is such a great field. It's so niche. It is a field that is adding value to make this world a better place.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on here today. We
Thank you
really
so much,
appreciate
Miss
it.
Valerie. This was wonderful. I
I
had a
mean,
great time
it's
today.
just everything that you've done and the time that you've had is just so incredible, and I'm so excited to see you're going to
Thank you
continue
so
to
much.
rise, and
Thank you.
I'm here for the journey. I can't wait to watch it. Thank you for joining us today on the Space for All podcast, brought to you by the Women's Aerospace Network. You can subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or iTunes, and you can watch full episodes on YouTube. For more information on the Women's Aerospace Network, visit womensaerospace.com or follow us on social media. We hope you will join us again for the next episode of Space for All, where we can all find a place in space.